Hey, it's Sterling Valentine. Welcome to your Internet Marketing Masterclass on social media. I'm always interested in talking to people about social media because this is by far the topic that more people have different definitions for and different ideas about than almost any other topic. You know, it's funny when these sites come out for the first time, you think, well, maybe this will be the new thing, or this will be the thing that I'll use, and this is great. Look what you can do with it. But very, very often, it's difficult to put these sites into perspective. Yeah, they give you the ability to do new stuff, but so what? What does that stuff that you can do have anything to do with getting subscribers and sales? You know, very often we get distracted by the bright, shiny objects, and we end up spending time and investing time, energy, and money into using these sites when we're really not sure exactly how they're supposed to fit into our bigger picture. So we're going to start with some basics tonight and then move into some advanced strategies. And tonight it's a little bit of a different masterclass than usual because I don't just want to teach you what to do, but in this one I also really want to put it into perspective and context so that you understand this stuff, because nothing is more misunderstood and unfortunately used ineffectively as social media. So let's take a look at our objective for tonight. Our masterclass objective is to learn advanced strategies to effectively profit from social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, things like that. And when I say profit, you know, I also mean subscribers and sales. And we're going to also introduce a third element tonight about branding. So here's our bullets for tonight. We want to put social media into perspective as a marketer. This is the key number one thing you need to do before you just start running off and pushing buttons on sites. Because if you do it wrong, not only can you, waste a lot of time, energy, and money, but what's worse is it can actually put a black mark on your brand, and you don't want to do that. The last thing you want to do is try to be moving forward positively and end up taking steps backwards and looking negative. So unlike, let's say, technology, for example, technology is a big black hole where we can, drop a lot of time, energy, and money into it, and then later on, 6 months later, say, what did I really accomplish? Not much. Well, at least you're still behind and you're only broken frustrated. But with social media, you can really actually embarrass yourself or turn people off, and you really don't want to do that because it's a live streaming active conversation. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So as I said earlier, we're going to talk about how to use these social media sites to build subscribers, build sales, and also to build our branding. And this is the first time we're really talking about branding in detail in the Masterclass series, because the opportunity that social media provides us, the exposure, the connection, the viral nature, the spreading of it, it doesn't just give us an opportunity to build subscribers and sales, but it gives us an opportunity to be seen. It gives us what I like to call touch points, which I'll tell you about in a second. And these touch points don't necessarily have to lead to subscribers and sales right away. They can pre-lead to subscribers and sales. So having some good touch points is a very good basis for getting started. So I want to talk to you about those in a little bit. I'm going to give you some different ways to start a conversation online, because believe it or not, the social media world is just like any other cocktail party or office party. It's, sometimes people just stand against the walls and they don't really know how to start a conversation. And starting a conversation is vital, because social media ultimately is a conversation. In fact, all markets are conversations. And if you can't start a conversation and you can't participate in a conversation, you can't benefit from the conversation. So even though it sounds like, what is this, a public speaking class or something? Communications 101? Well, actually, kind of yes, because that's what social media is. Don't get hung up on the fact that there's websites with buttons and click things and all that. It's really about people. Everything at the end of the day is about people. So we're also going to talk about how to build anticipation and suspense through social media, and I'll give you a little extra last minute tip where you'd be surprised where to find some other hot social media sites. So let's get started. How do we put social media into perspective as a marketer? Well, let's take a look at our 3 key steps here for online success. We're talking about doing affiliate marketing. In case you're talking about doing something else, you can still fit it, but I'm talking about doing the kind of affiliate marketing that marketers have been doing for years, and getting a big piece of the pie of some of the largest affiliate marketing programs all over the world. I mean, this is our focus in my work at Sterling Valentine's communities, if you want to call them that, where I really try to train my students to be branded affiliate marketers, to do list building, to drive traffic to squeeze pages, build a list, and send out relevant product and service offers to people on your list that you serve, the community that you serve. Send out relevant product and service offers that they would benefit from, and hopefully, get a piece of that pie like everybody else is. So when you take a look at the basics here, They don't change. Attraction, capture, and monetization. We're going to talk about how social media plays into this. So let's go over these briefly. So attraction is the first step. People are out here in the jungle, out there in the environment, and they don't know anything about you. So first they have to find you. You have to get found. How do I find out about you? Well, somewhere along the way they have to trip over some kind of traffic trigger. And in social media, these traffic triggers are touch points, are places where people can bump into you for the first time. So you might ask somebody, hey, how did you meet so-and-so? And they'd say, well, I first bumped into him at a convention, and or something like that. This is the first touch point where we actually meet somebody. It doesn't have to be the time where we actually get them to become our subscriber and make a sale, but it's a good starting point to begin the conversation. And remember, it's all about conversations. So the prospects can find us through our traffic trigger, through these touch points, and then usually there's a call to action of some kind to click through to the next step. Now, in social media, you actually can not only do your own traffic triggers, but other people can help with this too. For example, if somebody virally shares something that they retweet your tweets, and we'll talk about those in a second, or they'll post a link to something that you posted. So it's a great way for other people to do a lot of the work for you in building your brand and building your subscribers and building your sales. So once somebody finds out about you, there's usually some type of call to action. Whether it's, hey, go read this blog post from my really good friend, or wow, I saw this tweet, it was so cool, I wanted to retweet it, something like that. Or it's just your own thing that you've put out there. No matter what, there is a click-through. There's some kind of call to action. There's a, hey, go look at this element involved, right? And so when they go there, the typical way we teach when driving sort of direct traffic to this affiliate marketing model, the list building model, is that they go to the squeeze page immediately. In social media's case, they can go to something that's a pre-squeeze, like a blog post that has a sidebar with an opt-in form on it, or they can just go to a Facebook page, a fan page that has an opt-in form or something like that. And very often, these initial touch points, these multiple layers of, well, first I saw a tweet about it, and then I read the blog post, and then I read some other blog post by this person, and then I went to their squeeze page and downloaded their free ebook. You can see how there are layers involved, but very often this is how the introduction and communication and conversation starts. After that, as we know, we monetize by sending relevant product and service offers to the people on your list from either your affiliate partners or your own self. If you develop your own content, that's cool too. And so this is the basic framework, because when we talk about social media, I can't tell you the number of times the social media training that I've seen starts off with this, breathlessly excited person saying, wow, this new super site is really great, and look at all the things, and they focus on the tool, and they don't focus on the job. But the tool is just a tool for the job. The job is increase branding, increase subscribers, increase sales. That's your job. So the tool is only useful if you can use it quickly, easily, and effectively, inexpensively, to do that. Don't get hung up on the latest and greatest bright, shiny object syndrome. In fact, most social media in the beginning may actually be too much too soon. It can even be a waste of your time and counterproductive, as I said before. So we're going to focus on just a couple basic things to do to make this really, really work for you. But before we can set things up, we have to understand the context. So as a marketer, what does social media allow you to do? Well, let me tell you what. Markets are about conversations, right? In fact, it's been said that any market is just a series of conversations. If you remember that Wall Street, where the stock exchange is, the stock exchange actually wasn't originally in a building. It was a bunch of guys that would gather together under a particular tree and trade stocks. That's the truth. And then eventually they were getting rained on, and they said, why don't we move this into a room in a building? And then the New York Stock Exchange was born, which is now a huge market. But it's really just a bunch of conversations. So people are talking anyway. And the thing about social media is that social media has given us the ability to do something really long-winded called disintermediation. What the heck is disintermediation? Well, let's break down this word. Dis means un or not, or the reverse of. Intermediary, right? And I'll put RY here. What is an intermediary? That's a go-between. That's a person who's between you and somebody else. And the best way to look at this is For example, the internet has been the great leveling playing field. It levels the playing field. They call it the great leveler. Let's go back into a different metaphor so I can help you understand disintermediation and how powerful it is. If you guys remember back in the 50s or 60s, I don't remember exactly when, but I know there was a guy named Ed Sullivan, and he had a show called The Ed Sullivan Show, and a band called The Beatles came on The Ed Sullivan Show and became worldwide hits, especially in America, because The Ed Sullivan Show broke the act, so to speak. The Ed Sullivan Show introduced the band to the United States. And many argue that if it wasn't for the Ed Sullivan appearance, the Beatles wouldn't have been as big as they were, because Ed Sullivan beamed them into all the homes in the world. So you have the audience, you have the gatekeeper, and then you have the artist, for the sake of this conversation, right? The artist. So the gatekeeper, you can see, is in between the audience and the artist. He is an intermediary. And what's the problem with this model? Well, the problem is that the good news is, if Ed Sullivan says you're on the show, great, you're on the show and you made it. But what happens if Ed Sullivan says you're not on the show? Can you still, as an artist, reach that audience? Can you still just reach as many people? Well, no, actually, because it's a triangle. It's a command and control model. He decides who gets through this gate and who doesn't. And the problem is, if you don't qualify, if you don't get the gatekeeper's attention, you don't get through. And this happens all the time. People want to get on the news, or a record company, signs an act or doesn't sign an act, or an author gets picked up by the publishing house or doesn't. Do you see how there's these big intermediaries? Television, magazines, newspapers, media, record companies, etc., movie production companies. They hold the keys. And so before social media, before the internet, especially before social media, that was it. Your whole entire job as an artist was to get the attention of the gatekeepers. What did bands always used to say? I got to get signed. I got to get a record deal. Remember? And even with American Idol and things like that today, they're still looking for the deal, right? Because gatekeepers still have many, strong footholds in these industries. But social media allows the conversation that has been going on anyway to now happen on a grand scale. It empowers people, and it turns what used to be a monologue into a dialogue. Now, I know this sounds like a college course, a stuffy college course on communications, but you'll see how powerful this is when you understand it. Most of the people who are using these tools are using them ineffectively, I promise you. Most of the time, people who are using Twitter or Facebook, you'll see marketers have no Twitter following and a bunch of posts, buy this thing now, and no followers, because they're using it wrong. I mean, yeah, they're on Twitter, congratulations, but other than that, they're totally using it ineffectively, and they're not getting any results from it. So unless you've gotten superior results, fantastic results from social media, then you might benefit from considering that this stuff is important, because this is the base of this stuff. This is what you build on. This is the foundation. So the gatekeeper always used to decide what stuff the audience could get. And the audience could speak amongst themselves, but the audience couldn't really talk back too much to the gatekeeper. I mean, you could write a letter to Ed Sullivan, but good luck getting a response, right? And then eventually, when the audience was exposed to whatever the content was, the artist or whatever, then they could have somewhat of a dialogue. But really, most of the time, the artist became the broadcaster. Broadcasting down to the audience, putting out movies or records or books or whatever, and then you just take it. That's your job, is to pay for it. And you can speak amongst yourselves in a conversation, but ultimately the intermediaries held such power that your conversation was secondary. But now, the interesting thing that's happened with social media is that it's elevated this conversation. So now it puts us, the audience, in control. And it basically eliminates the gatekeeper. Let me see if I can actually do a strike through on this one. Take a look. No, we can't seem to do that, because the little line where you put the line through the words, I'll just erase it, right? So now the audience and the artist can connect directly with each other. And this doesn't just happen to be has to be the artist. For example, this could be the car insurance company, right? Or the food company or whatever, right? So as we move out of the artistic model into the business model for a second, now look at what happens. People are talking about the product or service anyway, but now instead of doing it in the dark, they do it in the light of day, publicly, where everybody can see what's going on. So there's a much higher level of transparency. And this is one of the hopes of you know, internet and social media people is that, for example, dictatorships won't be able to survive much longer, where people are, their civil rights are taken away and they're abused. Because what do they rely on? They rely on secrecy and darkness and silence. So people are actually smuggling cell phone cameras into these countries that have dictatorships and risking their lives to capture some of this information. And what do they do with it? They introduce it into the conversation. We start to say, well, if so-and-so government is going to be doing that to its people, we don't want to support them with tax dollars anymore, or whatever it is. So you can see how the conversation really, really matters, and it's very powerful because people are talking about things anyway, but now that everybody knows what everybody's talking about, you can get directly to the artist or the company. You can directly have a one-to-one relationship. It's not triangular anymore. It's not you must pass through the gatekeeper first. You can now have a dialogue, and people can have a dialogue, and the company can have a dialogue with the people. So, for example, there have been recalls of products that were handled one way before, in the old days, and now they're handled differently. In some cases, they should be, because the conversation is right there, and people can give immediate feedback and access. So, I want you guys to pay very close attention to how you can engage people in conversation, participate in conversation, and hopefully influence the conversation in a way that it gets you branding, subscribers, and sales. And remember, notice I didn't say control the conversation, because those days are over. You can't really control the conversation anymore. The genie's out of the bottle, right? The horse is out of the barn, and the conversation is open. And the best you can do is follow best practices and do your best and give good customer service and all those other things that always mattered, because people are going to be talking whether you like it or not, and you really can't control what happens. And yeah, there have been forums before, but forums weren't. They were different little water coolers around different niches. But now Twitter and Facebook, they're really one great central water cooler. So the conversation is so much less escapable. It's really everywhere all at once, and it's instantaneous. So if somebody tweets or takes a picture of what they're having for dinner and puts it on Facebook, on their timeline, or on Twitter, it's instant, and everybody all over the world can know about it. And that's a huge, huge, powerful tool. But again, like most tools, it's being adopted both effectively and ineffectively. So what do we take away from all this so far? What contextualization can we put to this? Well, if you're a vendor, and as an affiliate you're a vendor, you are part of a marketplace where people buy and sell goods and services, and ideas actually as well. So you're a part of a conversation. And as a part of the conversation has been disintermediated. Now that means that the gatekeeper's gone, and social media has put the audience in control of the conversation, and they are now engaging and requiring a dialogue instead of just a monologue. And that requires, there's some new rules, so it requires open eyes and an attitude of transparency, and most of all, respect for your audience and for the conversation. So we don't want to start looking at our customers as buying units, as some businesses do. We just want to start looking at our customers as people. And people who buy things talk about things now, and they talk about things in a way that the conversation can be seen. In fact, the conversations can be talked about. So now, for example, you have bloggers blogging about blogs, right? Bloggers blogging about blogs sounds kind of funny, but it's true. You have social media experts who are, tweeting about Twitter. Well, so even the conversation is being conversed about. So it's the levels of power and strength that the audience has that they never had before. And your job is to enter into this conversation, engage with people, make a contribution, and of course, offer value and offer opportunities. So there are ways to enter the conversation, there are ways to engage with people, there are ways to make a contribution and offer value, and there are ways to offer further opportunities outside of the conversation. But above all, you must approach this as a conversation that you have with respect to others. And why is this so important? Well, if you've ever gone to a cocktail party and had a guy suddenly barge into there's a circle of friends and they're all having a nice conversation and having drinks and they're talking, and somebody just elbows their way in and interrupts and says, "Hey, listen, I sell life insurance. Does anybody want to buy any life insurance?" How does that feel, right? It totally feels inappropriate. It's jarring. It's discordant. It feels rude. It feels thoughtless. It shows lack of attention to detail, lack of self-awareness. It's just really, really bad form. And it probably is going to have the opposite effect. Not only is nobody going to buy any life insurance that minute probably, but they're also going to tell their friends, "Do you believe this guy?" And then that story is going to roll and snowball until nobody wants to work with this guy. And that's exactly what can happen in social media. If you approach this as with an old school mentality of exploitation, instead of respect and conversation. So if you're an exploiter, these are going to be buying units that are, we need to sell some units to these buying units. We need to move some product. Well, those people who enter into this self-aware social media scene with that kind of old school attitude get talked about very negatively, and they get shunned and squeezed out of the community, because that's not self-aware. That's still treating people as if they didn't have the power to talk, and it's missing the point that they do have the power to talk. So I'm trying to give you this little crash course in the philosophy and ramifications of social media so that you can see how and when to use it effectively. So let's take a look at our bullets again. So as a marketer, it can help bring you subscribers, sales, and branding if used properly. So how do we use social media sites like Facebook and Twitter effectively to do these kind of things? I mean, these are three different areas that we want to focus on, and what are some ways that we can actually do that? Now, of course, if you don't have a Facebook or Twitter account, let's start with the basics and get an account there. Each one takes about 30 seconds with easy to follow instructions that if you've already bothered to sign up and get the content of this course, you already more than know how to do that. So I'm not going to waste your time and insult your intelligence by saying, put your mouse here and type in your name right where it says name, because you already know how to do that. And they have much better instructions than I could provide you, because they have millions of dollars behind them, and they can spend hours making videos and everything on exactly what to do if your password gets lost and all that stuff. So I don't want to waste your time with low-level mechanics. I want to spend your time at a masterclass level, at a high-level understanding, so you can really profit from this. So get an account on both of these sites, and if you really, really want to get hardcore into social media, then depending on when you get this course and the freshness of it, these sites that are the most powerful sites may change. So instead of making a recommendation to you of the other sites that I think you should use, I want you to Google the words top social media sites, perhaps top 10 or most popular, or here's another great way to Google these things: essential social media sites. And if you really want to get sexy, you can also type in internet marketing, social media. Now beware, you're going to find a lot of vendors along the way. And I'm not looking for you at this time to get caught up in somebody else's course or service or whatever. You're free to sign up for whatever you want. But beware when you search for this stuff. A lot of people know that social media is a hot commodity. They know that people are very interested in it. People want to profit from it. So the best way for some people to make money off of social media is to, sell social media stuff to other people who are interested in social media. So I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying beware. A lot of times I've sent people out to get involved in social media, and they come back saying they got involved in some service that they're paying for hundreds of dollars every month that they don't understand. That's really not getting involved in social media. That's just hiring somebody to do something for you that you don't understand, right? And now if you do understand it, great, but I want you to be able to get a Facebook account, get a Twitter account, stay focused on the basics, and those are subscriber sales and branding. Let me actually move these around handle these individually, I should say. So, subscribers. How do we use Facebook and Twitter effectively to get subscribers? Well, we know that the main pivot point, let me pull up that slide again. The main pivot point here is the squeeze page. You see how the traffic triggers are on one side and the monetization is on the other side. People on the left emails on the right, opportunities to purchase. So what's right in the center of this seesaw is the squeeze page. So whether it's a squeeze page or a squeeze in the sidebar or wherever you put it, the point is that you want to be able to get an opt-in. And depending on when you get this course, you may or may not have yet seen opt-ins also besides via email as SMS. You can also have smartphone apps. So however we're talking about getting people to opt in, the opt-in in our case is getting people to join, as they say, your maybe lake, that Robert Allen calls it. Maybe lake is, if you imagine a lake stocked with fish, they are maybe interested in what you have, but they're not necessarily buyers. They're just people who are possibly interested. You're worth listening to, but you're not necessarily somebody I'm definitely going to buy from. And this is why two-step marketing, a little side note here, is why two-step marketing is very important. Many people try to drive the traffic triggers directly to the product offers without doing the middle step of getting them to opt in. And that's very dangerous because, as we talked about in many other master classes, the people bounce off, they never opt in, and then you never have a chance to get them again. But you still spent the hard-earned time, energy, and money to get them there. So that's not a good idea. So that's why we try to stock the maybe lake first by getting people on our list, and then giving them products and services that they have an opportunity to pay us. So when you take a look at subscribers, you want to get people to something that they can opt in to, right? Some kind of choice where they can join you, right? That's what it's about, joining your conversation, if you will. So there are many ways to use Facebook and Twitter to do that. The most direct ways are the raw way, which is to just make an invitation to people to grab a freebie. What the last thing you want to do on social media is try to make a sales pitch. And if you understand two-step marketing, you'll understand that offering a free product, a free service, a free value, whether it's a consultation or a downloadable report or something like that, to me is the best way to make a sales pitch for the sales pitch. We talked about getting people on your maybe list. The sales pitch comes later when they know you, like you, and trust you. But for right now, you just want to get them into the conversation by providing a value up front so that then they're on your list and you have multiple time-based opportunities to offer them multiple products and services. So grabbing a freebie is a great way to give a sales pitch to the sales pitch. It's not saying, hey, I want to sell you something. It's saying, let me just give you something and give you an easy way to say yes, with the understanding that you've given me your permission to possibly give you a sales pitch later on that you can opt out of any time. So it's really making a sales pitch to them for the opportunity to be able to make sales pitches later. That's why I call it the two-step marketing process, the sales pitch to the sales pitch, right? Hey, can I give you some sales pitches a little bit later on if the value I give you up front is good enough? Right? That's a sales pitch, but the only sale I'm selling is the relationship, because the first sale should always in your mind be a relationship sale. And the way we do relationship, the way we build good relationships, is provide value without expectation for compensation. Now, of course, you have a hope and a desire that at some point some of the people on your list will buy something. So when I say without expectation for compensation, I don't mean that you want to set up a philanthropic organization and never get a penny. That's not what I'm talking about. It's a business. But what I'm saying is, to that particular person that you're speaking with, you don't have an expectation at that moment to get compensation from them individually at that moment. Hey, I gave you a free report. Now you're supposed to buy me something from me, right? That's not what we're talking about. So how do we get people to opt in by providing a freebie? Well, you can join the Twitter conversation or the Facebook theme, the Facebook timeline of your own, and put the invitation there. But that won't work if there's nobody around. So we have to take a little trip for a second on how to build a following. And this is a very simple and very overlooked, I'll call it build a tribe, build a following. Or I love this word, build a pre-list. What the heck is a pre-list? Well, let's take a look, for example, at a great way to build a tribe or a following or a pre-list using Twitter. So you get a Twitter account, and if you don't know how it works, it's very simple. It's just a micro-blogging platform where everybody gets 140 characters to say whatever they want, and if whoever's following them, whoever's following them gets to see their little tweets or posts. So if I follow you and you make a tweet tomorrow, I'll get it. If I'm not following you, I won't get it. If 10 people are following you, then 10 people get your little post, your little tweet, your little micro-blog message. So you want to build followers so that more people will be in your conversation to hear what you have to say. Great way to do that is to start following other people. And you can start following other people in the area of interest that you have. So if you're a dog grooming expert and you want to make yourself a tribe of dog grooming interested people, then find a bunch of dog grooming people that have Twitter accounts and follow everybody who's following them. Most of the time you'll get a follow back, and a follow back just means that somebody gets a message that Joe Smith is now following you, and they'll say, oh cool, I'll click the button to follow Joe Smith as well. So just by following people in the niche, you can build yourself a nice little pre-list. Especially experts and their followings. That's a great way to get the job done quickly because you're leveraging other people's work. So if there's an expert in dog grooming who took the last 5 years to build a big Twitter following, you can follow some of his followers, and those that are interested in the dog grooming part that follow you back. Now you have your own pre-list. It's not necessarily a list, but it's a pre-list. That means these are good candidates of people that may join your list. I'll call these candidates of future list members, right? And that's fine. So now you actually have 3 levels, or 3 tiers, if you will. You have what we always talk about: customers. I want to go back for a second. Suspects, prospects, and customers. We know that suspects are people who may be prospects, may be interested in things, but we're not sure if they are. Prospects are people who have voluntarily told us, yes, I would be interested in some dog grooming information. I'm not promising that I will ever buy anything, but you can put me on your maybe list, or your list of people who might be interested. Yes, you have my permission to give me a sales pitch in the future if you've given me value. And finally, customers are people who have spent money with you. Well, that's the traditional way we look at it with internet marketing. But with social media, we want to look at it a little bit differently. We want to add in this step. What's a pre-list prospect? Well, for example, let's say suspects equals all the people in the world. And they're suspects. Some of them may end up being your customers, but just like a detective mystery movie, we're not sure which person it is. So they're all considered suspects until we figure out who did the crime, right? So all the people in the world are considered suspects because we don't know which one of those have dogs and are interested in dog grooming. So they're all suspects for right now, but we want to start to separate these people. So we build a pre-list of prospects, and that is either a Twitter or Facebook following, fans, if you will. And these pre-list prospects are people who have joined Facebook or Twitter and followed you so that they're in your Facebook or Twitter following. But remember, who owns that data? Who owns what's on Twitter? Who owns what's on Facebook? Twitter and Facebook do. Who controls your access to the people who are in your following on Twitter or Facebook? Twitter and Facebook do. If they decide to close up shop or do something else because it's their house and they can do whatever they want, what happens to this pre-list that you have? You don't control the access to them. They do. So this is why it's vitally important to move people from the pre-list to your autoresponder. Now I'm saying autoresponder because of email marketing, but if you want to do SMS marketing, then get them to give them your phone number on a phone squeeze, and or text that they text a message via SMS, and then that puts their phone number on a list. Or if they do whatever the next thing is, download an app or something. They're in your home base now. They went from Nowheresville as suspects to in a list, so to speak, but in a list that you don't control, to a list that you do control, your list, right? And then even if they leave Twitter or Facebook or something else happens to them, or they change their Twitter, account or something, it doesn't matter because you've got them on your autoresponder list. And then from there, it's back to the regular old, relevant products and services. Hopefully somebody becomes a customer. So we want to move them from pre-list prospect to prospect. They've already moved themselves from suspect to the internet. They've already gone from somebody who's just walking around in the world to somebody who's also on Twitter. So if you could start following the followers of other experts that you know, or just building your network by just looking for people who are interested in a certain keyword, you can go to twitter.com/search and search dog grooming, and then find people who have dog grooming in their profile and follow them. There's a lot of ways to do it, and you can build your own following, and you're free to do so. You can follow those people. That doesn't mean they will all follow you back, but the statistics show a lot of people will follow you back just because it's sort of common rules of the road courtesy, if you will. It just happens a lot. I don't know why, but it's just part of the system. So now they're in your pre-list of prospects. What do we do to then start to build subscribers and sales now that we've gotten them from here to pre-list prospects? Well, we talked about the best way, I think. Invite them to get a freebie. And if you're using something like List Laser, which is the service I provide to give you squeeze pages like this, 40 different squeeze pages that you have automatically branded, free reports written and ready to go, then that's a great way to leverage that and, download a report. How about invite them to a survey, or give their opinion. Another great way to do that is to warm up by posting a like kind of comment, or post a relevant article, or link, funny photo, etc. Notice none of these things are sales pitches. You don't want to be like that guy at the party. So by posting these kind of things and building your list of candidates, you're warming up your market and saying, this is a good person to follow. You should pay attention when I put stuff up. And most importantly, you want to offer, whenever possible, value. You want to be a caregiver, right? Just like a shepherd gives care to his flock of whatever he's tending to, or a pastor of a church or a rabbi of a temple or something takes care of their following, and then a father or mother or another guide figure takes care of a family, a teacher takes care of a class. You want to think of this as a community that you serve. So who is the community you serve, and how may you best serve them? These are the questions that will lead you to becoming a good shepherd for your following, and then the answers will guide you as to what kind of things you should send them. So now when you stumble upon somebody's empty Twitter account where they've got 7 followers, and for the past 6 months they've been hammering away these messages, buy this thing now, sell now, hurry up quick before it's gone, you'll realize they're totally doing it wrong. They're not being a good shepherd. They're just trying the old school command and control way of hammering away, like marketing from the 1950s, where they would just advertise things on television and say, you need to buy this now. That's not this world anymore. This is the 21st century. So if you think of the community and you think of how to be a good shepherd to them, you'll start to think of other ways besides the ways that I've given you to interact with that community. Another great way to do it is to take your freebie. This is a little advanced tip. and ask for thoughts about it. So this is an interesting twist, because in order to give their opinion about your freebie, they have to get it. Now, it's not trickery, it's just asking people for their opinion. They can opt out immediately after, and you can tell them, look, you don't have to be on my list, you can just download it and opt out, or you could even provide them a special link for all your Twitter followers where it's downloadable without opting in, right? So you don't have to it's not like you're trying to fool them, but this is a great way to engage the conversation, get the ball rolling, and get the ball rolling by also getting opinions of the people that you are maybe attempting, representative of the people you're attempting to build a list of. What do they think? Finding out what they think of the thing that you're offering. Maybe they say, hey, your freebie's crap and I hate it and I don't want it and it irritates me and annoys me and it makes me want to not follow you anymore. Okay, thanks for that feedback, because I wouldn't have known. I would have been out there, making bad moves for months or years. So what would you like? You can invite them to take a survey, as I said, and ask. This is a great way to find things out, because people like talking, people like sharing, people like others who find what they say interesting. There's an old saying to strive to be interested, not interesting. People who try to be interesting are always talking about myself. I'm this, I'm that. But people who strive to be interested say, hey, tell me more about that. And there's nothing we like better than meeting somebody that says, tell me more, because we'd like to talk about ourselves. That's part of being human. So when we find an interested party, it's great. Sorry if I spelled that wrong. The old story of the person who was a really good question asker, who really was an interested person, who met somebody at a party, and for an hour they just sat there, and the interested person just asked questions and said, fascinated by things. Tell me more about that. At the end of the conversation, the person who did all the talking for the hour says, wow, I really love talking with you. And the other person thinks, well, yeah, because you did all the talking, So, but the point is, if you're interested and want to get their opinion, you will be armed with the knowledge that they have, that they're transferring what they think and feel over to you. And not only does that build awareness on your part, but it helps you to become something else. And that is a thought leader. Now, that doesn't mean cult leader. That just means a person who is in possession of a lot of the, of awareness of the thoughts and feelings and mood and pulse and temperature of that market. And so you can start to build what they call social capital. Now, social capital is interesting because it's supposedly, in theory, it works just like regular capital, money. You can build it by earning it. You can spend it. You can even waste it, right? Social capital is the credit, respect, esteem of the community that you have, and this is a great way to build your social capital. And why is this important? Well, maybe, for example, somebody is about to buy, let's say, one of my products or services, maybe through an affiliate or something. Well, I know that this happens before they buy it. They say, well, so-and-so says that it's pretty good. So there's some social capital right there. But just in the event that that person is just making a promotion and doesn't really care about me or the product, maybe they're just selling something. So I should check out the original vendor himself anyway. So people will Google my name, search my name, and then the name of the product or service that I'm offering. And sometimes my Twitter feed comes up, which I haven't been using much lately, but we're in the process of integrating it completely into MarketerLink, our community. So we're very actually big on social media. It's just you haven't seen it yet. Maybe by the time you get this, it'll already be there. But also, they'll check out other conversations, like in forums or things like that, where it's been really, really discussed already, and people will find what kind of social capital this person has. So on forums, for example, they'll find a thread, and somebody else will come in and say, Sterling, I had a good experience with him, or somebody else will say I didn't, and then how did I answer that, or did I even answer it? A lot of people, there's just forums where they're getting torn apart and they never even answer anything. You say, well, that's not a good sign, right? So Social capital is sort of like your online reputation, and it can be built, earned, spent, wasted, saved, and even, believe it or not, traded. So you want to be able to ask as part of being a good shepherd, because this is a great way for you to learn your market. And really remember, you're not just trying to monetize by sucking money out of the people. You really want to monetize through service, right? You want to serve the community, and then the monetization is secondary, right? Provide value without expectation for compensation up front. Givers gain, as they say, and so you want to make sure you give first and ask second, and that works very, very well. So taking a look at that now, how do we try to build sales and branding through social media? Well, if you think about it, the best way to build sales is by building a subscriber list. So the best way to sell, at least initially on social media, is don't sell. Don't ever sell, in my opinion. Now, some people, they've built up a big enough following, and they build a relationship with their Twitter following and their Facebook following, and they just do a blast out, and they say, hey, I got this for sale. I'll do a special 24-hour sale, and it works, and it's fine, and it doesn't hurt anybody. But I say this rule because the temptation is always there to sell too much too soon in the wrong way. So my advice is, until you're at a point where you're making a comfortable living, don't ever sell. Use the Prelist there that you have, you're following online, to engage, excite, interact, build relationships, and ask, so that you know your market better, right? So then what's the best way, since we already talked about sales and subscribers, what's the best way to build your brand? Well, again, I think it's exactly the same thing. Do the same thing you would do to get subscribers, which lead to sales, and that's this stuff. Because then you are branded as a person who's engaging, exciting, interactive, builds relationships, spends time trying to provide value. Do you see how everything leads to the same thing? You want people to want to do your opt-in. And I mean, the opt-in is the ultimate ask, right? You want to get them to say yes to a relationship first, and then you want them to hopefully turn that relationship into a profitable one with the people that you should. Remember, we only want to work with people who are a right match. We don't want to just go out there and shake every single person upside down for their money. And of course, when you're starting out, you're excited and you want to do that, but look at it long term. Build a long-term approach of respect and value, and try to become a thought leader, become a branded affiliate marketer. So when we go back to this now, and with this philosophy, take a look at this slide where we talked about being a branded affiliate marketer. So this picture of Steve here, Steve Tompkinson, he is a branded affiliate marketer who's giving this free report, trying to help people do affiliate marketing. Of course, he's an affiliate marketer helping people do affiliate marketing. And Steve is branding himself and building an image of himself as a person who's a thought leader. He's got these reports and he wants to share them with you. It's great that he can leverage them from List Laser. He's certainly free to write his own too. I'm just trying to provide an extra bit of leverage and service to him so he can do this quickly and easily and get a start, get a leg up, But look at what this does for you now when you use social media to do the things that I've requested that you do with it instead of what most people do with it. Now, you build brand awareness. Even if somebody doesn't opt in for the first 10 times, they say, hey, this guy Steve is always posting cool things, cool blog posts, or cool links to things, or cool stats and figures that he finds somewhere, or free reports that he's got. This last week I downloaded a good report from him. This guy is an expert. He's a thought leader. I like him. I want to get to know him better. I want to stay close to him, because we're really all out there looking for direction and leadership, and don't be afraid to step up and provide that. So we talked about ways to start a conversation online. An interesting thing, once you want to build anticipation and suspense, obviously you have to have some kind of following to do this, but you can always do what I like to call evolving stories, or you can also do little mini countdowns. These are two great, I love to call these actually evolving or unfolding stories, right? So for example, evolving or unfolding stories, you might say, today I'm continuing my review of this product, or I'm going to go on a diet starting on Friday if you're in the weight loss niche. So you start to build the anticipation by doing a mini countdown. You start telling people, sharing your results, unfolding what's happening in real time. Tomorrow I'm going to try this. I'll let you know how it goes. You see how you can keep people involved? We want to use hooks that are open loops. This is more of an advanced strategy to build anticipation and suspense. But an open loop requires closure from the mind. And I want to talk to you about something called the Zeigarnik effect. I'm not sure if I'm spelling it right, but if you Google it, it'll still come up even misspelled. And here's the Zeigarnik effect. It means that if something is left open, then the mind feels the need. It's just a knee-jerk reaction. The mind feels the need to close that loop. So, for example, a person, I think it was a psychologist or a scientist named Zeigarnik, was at a restaurant and watching the different waiters and waitresses. Whenever the waiter or waitress still had an outstanding bill at the table, they could remember everything about what the people ordered and all that stuff. The details were very fresh in their mind because the bill hadn't been paid yet. Once the bill was paid, if you asked the waiter or waitress what the people had, they forgot. They'd automatically left their mind. And so the scientist says that this is the effect that they were talking about, which got named after them, the Zeigarnik effect, that when there's still an open loop, when there's still something hanging out there unresolved, it makes our mind pay attention. So until that bill is paid, they're very, very focused and they follow what's happening. So how does this work in marketing? Well, in the old days of the direct sales letters, the print direct mail days, you might have gotten a direct mail piece that was like a 4 or 6 page letter to invite you to do something, buy gold or subscribe to a magazine or whatever it is. And it would start off with, when my 5-year-old daughter came home from school and told me what she told me, the news was shocking and I couldn't believe what happened next. But before I tell you that, let me tell you the story of how I got into the gold selling business. Well, right there, they've just opened a loop. They've stuck a hook into the interaction that now you say, well, I want to hear what the daughter said. I want to know what the thing was that you're referring to, the mystery thing. So by starting this little mystery, you're now in a heightened state of awareness. While you read the other stuff. The other stuff is the stuff they want you to read. So if they had just started off saying in the letter, for example, let me tell you how I got started in the gold business. Well, you'd crumple up the letter and throw it away because nobody cares. What's in it for me? But when the very same letter content is provided with somebody's open loop hook like that, the Zeigarnik effect takes place. And they say, when my daughter told me what she told me, I was shocked. So before I tell you that, there's this. Well, now this part, whatever they want you to read, you're very, very aware of and heightened. And you're speeding through it because you want to get to the part where they tell you what the daughter said. Very strong, powerful effect on the mind. So you'll notice this on the news. They'll say, coming up next, after the commercial, we're going to show you a man who blah, 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 right? Or sometimes they'll do it where they say, here's a little quiz. Who was the Cy Young Award winner in the 1938 New York Mets team? Was it A, so-and-so, B, so-and-so, or C, so-and-so? The answer, up next. And then you're sitting there with a cliffhanger, right? They used to call these movies cliffhangers because in the old days when they had serials, S-E-R-I-A-L-S, a serial movie was a movie that came out in parts, part after part after part after part, sometimes even weekly. So you would see the adventures of so-and-so, the hero, and every week something would happen. Well, they wanted you to come back to the theater, so at the end of the episode, they'd have the hero hanging from the cliff, a cliff hanger. What do? You have to come back to see if he fell off or not. Come back for more, right? That's how they did it. So sharing your results, telling a story, telling a mini countdown, it's not manipulative, a hypnotic tactic. It's just what human beings do all the time. People even do it accidentally with each other. They say, "Oh my God, I went to this party and it was great, but by the way, blah blah blah," and they start telling you something else, and you say, "No, no, no, go back to telling me the other thing. I've been waiting. You're distracting me from what I want to know from you." So we even get irritated when our friends and relatives do this to us. So it's just a very powerful effect, and it comes out when you share an unfolding story or a mini countdown. Sharing results over time, you want to reveal things. So this is a very, very popular and powerful way to communicate with your audience. So you could say, over the next 10 days, I'm going to be telling you the 10 most important things I think about this, or tell you the 7 secrets or mysteries or whatever. It's just very, very powerful because it leaves an open loop. So you want to keep that loop open and interesting, so that people want to come back and get closure. And you can then further split this into getting people's opinions on each thing. So I'm going to review 10 different products. So today's first product out of 10 is this one, and then we can have a conversation about that, etc. So you can multiply and add on these things. It's a great tactic. So finally, where to find the other hot social media sites. And originally I had a site or two I wanted to give you. I wanted to say, so I want you to look here, here, and here in order to, be on the next big thing. But how do you find what's next when the next big thing is over, or the next big thing has been replaced by something else? Well, here's how to do it. Plug in to the conversation and ask, where are people going? What are they doing? What other sites are you using? What sites have been effective for you? Because these sites are launched. Venture capital money is flying around everywhere. These sites are launched, by breakfast there's 3 of them, and by lunch there's another 3 of them. So they change. It's an ever-moving, hyper-competitive moving target. So the important thing is stay plugged in and connected to the conversation. Stay connected by asking questions and posting information, because then you can actually use your connections in your Prelist, your Twitter, your Facebook followings, to not just be your fans, but also friends. So when you do that, you'll be able to actually not only build a following, but actually get a sense of what your market is feeling and thinking. You'll become a thought leader, you'll build your brand, and hopefully that can lead to subscribers and sales. And it'll just make you overall a better marketer. So I hope you enjoyed your social media masterclass, and I'd love to hear from you how you use these techniques and tactics and philosophies to build your own social media following and subscribers and sales. That would mean a lot to me. So get in touch at sterlingvalentine.com, and I'll see you on the internet.